Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome once again to the grand and opulent comic book vault. It's time for new acquisitions, and this week I've got a whopping 11 books to review for you. At the end of the show, as always, we're going to talk to superhero enthusiast and find out what smattering of comics he's got for us this week that I didn't happen to read. As always, I want to say thanks to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping us out with the show, and if you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Elite Comics. They're absolutely fantastic. We sure appreciate them. Lots of great books this week, lots of fun stuff, and let's get right into it with Marvel. First up this week, it's What If? Age of Ultron #1. This is written by Joe Keating with art by Rafael Inco. This is the first of, I think, a 5-issue miniseries that's going to be weekly until it's finished, which is really strange because it reads as a bizarre one-shot. So in this version of Age of Ultron, there's really, as far as I can tell, no time travel involved unless there is later, and this isn't a one-shot, but a setup. I'm really wondering if this is the beginning of a story, or if there's going to be like 5 different one-and-done versions of here's another way Age of Ultron could have been done. This is really not anything like the Age of Ultron we got, and in a way, kind of a premise I like a little bit better. In this version, Hank Pym is the only Avenger left after years and years of Ultron taking over and creating this giant swarm of Ultrons, and I use the word swarm deliberately because there's a giant, creepy insect Ultron that's really awesome looking. And Hank Pym is trying to stop Ultron and kind of make up for past sins, although he says that he knows that there's really no way for redemption now. His sins are done. He created a monster, and he deserves he deserves his awful fate because of his hubris. But at the same time, he doesn't know how to do anything but keep fighting because it's his responsibility. And so it's an incredibly depressing issue, especially at the end, with a really creepy and crazy kind of O. Henry ending that I found surprisingly satisfying. I really liked this issue, but I kind of miss the old days of What If. Like, first of all, I'm just complaining about this because I love the What If series, and we don't do it very often anymore. It's not a regular thing, and it seems like these days there are always these kind of bloated miniseries, and we seem to almost only do them now with big events. I really wish it could be like, what if Age of Ultron happened some other way, you like actually have a question. I miss that. This is basically what if Age of Ultron was an entirely different thing that had nothing to do with the events of Age of Ultron. It used to be that What If would be a kind of an inciting incident that changed everything. So you'd have and it's again not always an event. You'd have a situation that was the way it was originally, like with what if Spider-Man never lost his 6 arms? So in that one, Peter Parker takes a serum, and he, in trying to get rid of the spider powers, but instead it gives him these 6 arms, and he starts turning into Man-Spider. But in this version, there's a catalyst that changes things and kind of creates another universe. And if not creates another universe, at least this is the way it happens in this universe. So everything is the same up to this point, and then there's a split off. And in that particular instance, Peter Parker got to keep his 6 arms. He didn't become Man-Spider, and Spider-Man just had 6 arms after that. Well, this doesn't have anything like that, and What If hasn't for a while, the stuff I've read. AVX didn't really do that either. AVX did it more than this did. It's just a totally different premise. It's Hank Pym is alone at the end of the human race, and I think it could have gotten us there through the initial premise of Age of Ultron, so I kind of wish it had done it that way. Having said that, I did enjoy this, and I kind of don't know what the point is of doing any more of this, because this one issue kind of, I thought, said everything it needed to about the mistake Hank Pym made, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going on after this, and if they're going to manage to add more story to this somehow, or if this is just a one-and-done story and all the rest of them will be that way too. Next up is the latest Deadpool adventure from Cullen Bunn. It's Deadpool vs. Carnage, written by Cullen Bunn with art by Salva Espin. And Carnage in this says that he's back to the basics. He's finished trying these big, grand-scale, crazy takeovers. He's back to, you know, that stuff didn't work very well. That's not his style, really. He's back to just randomly killing folks and enjoying every minute of it. And in comes Deadpool, who kind of sees Carnage as, in a twisted way, a kindred spirit. They both kind of think in similar ways in that they're both nuts, they're both out to lunch, and they both like to spend a lot of time saying whatever crazy, hilarious one-liners come to mind, and it really does make a lot of sense to put them together, but it's kind of fun to see them have to go up against each other, because they really do want different things, even though they're both in certain ways kind of the same kind of loony. And the book is back to basics in a lot of ways, not just in Carnage's motivations, but also in the art. It looks very much like a 90s Carnage comic to me, and there are a lot of homages back to Maximum Carnage, including, and I won't spoil it, but the cliffhanger ending here to lead us into the next issue. I really had a lot of fun with this. I still kind of more prefer Cullen Bunn doing Deadpool on the kind of weird, more surreal stage. I really loved the Deadpool trilogy, especially Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, and seeing Cullen Bunn write regular 616 Deadpool is a little bit odd to me, just because I'm not used to it. And I don't know if he's ever actually written just straight up 616 before. He usually is doing it in kind of his own alternate universe. Even the zombie thing he just did was that way. And but he has a really good voice for this character. I still like Cullen Bunn's Deadpool better than really anybody else's I've read so far. And this is kind of just Deadpool trying to track down Carnage, and he finally does. And let's see what kind of wackiness ensues after that. I'm definitely recommending this if you are either a Deadpool fan or a Carnage fan. It's really kind of fun for me to see these two things being put together, because I've been following Cullen Bunn's Deadpool and his writing, at least, with the character, and I've also been buying all the Carnage minis. This is really getting Carnage back finally to what I remember, and it's kind of a fun, nostalgic ride for me. We'll see if it ends up being any more than that as the series progresses. And now we're finally back to Ultimate Spider-Man again, with Ultimate Comics All New Spider-Man number 200, the big anniversary tribute issue post-Cataclysm. Now, I didn't talk about the end of Cataclysm. I ended up dropping off that whole event, weirdly, just because I guess I didn't have it on my pull list, and I didn't see it at the store, and I kind of honestly sort of forgot about it. And frankly, as soon as I realized that it wasn't going to be ending the whole Marvel Universe, I kind of lost interest in it anyway. I will eventually go back and get those issues, because I collect Galactus. But anyway, now finally Miles Morales Spider-Man is about to start, and first we've got this big thick anniversary issue. Actually, I say thick, I don't think this is any bigger than normal, is it? Yeah, it's a $5 issue. Yeah, it's a few extra pages. But anyway, this is a kind of just really heartfelt celebration of Spider-Man and of Peter Parker, centering in a really, really great way on Miles Morales, I think. So it's 2 years after Peter Parker died, and Aunt May is throwing a big party to celebrate his life. It's not a mourning of his death, but a celebration of his life, and we get to see each of his best friends and the people closest to him go through what they think maybe he would have been when he grew up. And there's a big emphasis on he was still a teenager when he died, and on how Miles Morales is now a teenager and getting kind of close to the age he was when he died. And so we get these really fantastic two-page splash pages of what Gwen Stacy thinks he might have been like, and what Iceman thinks he might have been like, and then it gets to Kitty Pryde, and she won't talk about her feelings, but we get to see what's in her head. And like I said, it's really heartfelt. It's kind of moving interesting stuff, and what I'm impressed with is that the issue still manages to tell a little bit of story, even while mostly just being kind of a tribute thing. And so we get some nice character stuff from Miles Morales. His is appropriately, I think, the best of the what would Peter Parker be like if he was still alive bits, where we get to see this kind of montage of him and Peter Parker as partners, or maybe even him as a sidekick, and it's fun, it's touching, and so and he's of course still trying really hard to live up to that, and he's grown up a little bit himself and has really come into his own as Spider-Man, and at the beginning of this, without giving too much away, we get some really nice character stuff for Gang, and he and Gwen Stacy might be having a thing, and never saw that coming, and I totally buy it if that's the direction that they're going with it. So it's really impressive that Bendis manages to actually set the stage for some character stuff. Nothing big supervillain plotty. I really like that this doesn't end on some big cliffhanger of, and now this villain is back. Oh no, here comes Green Goblin or something. It's not like that. This issue is very much a standalone one-and-done thing that is propelling a little bit of character stuff forward, a little bit of relationship stuff forward, but honestly, it is wholly skippable. But if you really like Ultimate Spider-Man, I wouldn't recommend skipping it. I thought it was a really fun, nice read, and it's really warm and heartfelt and optimistic, and at the end of it, everybody at the party decides, and this is kind of Aunt May's idea, I think. Everybody at the party kind of decides to go out and do something nice for someone, and what they come up with is really cool, and they all kind of they're all kind of heroes in their own way, but it's not like a superhero thing. And anyway, I was really kind of moved by this issue. Next up, we've got the third issue of Loki, Agent of Asgard. This is written by Al Ewing with art by Lee Garbett, and this issue takes quite the tone shift. This book, for the first couple issues, is really fun, really crazy, kind of espionage stuff with this kind of Asgardian backdrop with Loki, and here we have this kind of backstory that is telling us a lot more about the elderly other Loki that was set up at the end of the first issue. And so there's this other Loki, and apparently he's been around forever, and he dates back to well before Boar. And so we see a story here about all of these kind of manipulations and machinations in the background by the elderly Loki, who is who's kind of manipulating Odin when he's a teenager. And it also is setting up Sigurd really hard, and there's a lot of there's a big involved plot with a dragon that used to be a man, and that is trying to, and there's a plot to destroy Asgard, and basically it's this kind of big conspiracy to try to mess up everything in Asgard. And all of this seems to be kind of giving us some background in order to set up some things to come in present day. And it's still, in its way, sort of an espionage story, but with this, but with this very kind of fanciful sword and sorcery kind of backdrop. Honestly, some of this was lost on me because I'm not a giant Thor fan, and because my understanding of Thor lore is better than it used to be, but still somewhat limited. And so I've heard of Sigurd. I know of him, but there's a lot of story stuff that I feel like if I had, I probably would appreciate this a little bit more. It looks like this stuff is going to be dealt with even more in Journey to Mystery. There's a note about that, and so if you're reading that book, you'll get even more of this background stuff. I mean, it was really interesting to see an Odin before he's an Allfather. That's somewhat of an unusual thing. We don't see a lot of the early days of Odin, and it's just very surreal to see him dealing with a character called Loki, who's not the Loki we're familiar with, and there's a whole kind of memory wipe thing that makes that all clean and work, and it's okay because there's a lot of magic potion stuff in this, and that's kind of that's kind of how the God of Mischief works anyway. You never know as much as you think you do with him, so I'm totally fine with the way that plays. I wasn't as riveted by this one as I was the first two. I didn't have as much fun with it because it is very much a different thing, and it's kind of mostly a setup issue, telling us some things that it thinks it needs us to know for the future. Like I said, I bet major Thor fans, I bet Dan Torrey is going to appreciate and love this issue a lot more than I did, and I'm not going to get real into the plot and stuff. Like I said, it's pretty much just kind of giving us some background about the elderly Loki that we're about to see deal with our Loki. I kind of think issue 4 is going to get really interesting given what we get at the end of this. Next up, it's Magneto #2 by Cullen Bunn with art by Gabriel Walta, and Magneto here is really dealing with the monster that he's become and trying to decide if he is as bad as the men who were persecuting him back during World War II, and it looks very much like the story is really paralleling things that were going on at in that period, and we get some flashbacks to Magneto as a kid and a situation where one of his friends was gunned down in the street basically in order to protect him. And there's a similar situation that happens here where Magneto is willing to kill someone regardless of the fact that they are giving him exactly what he asked for. And why does he do it? He does it because he does it for spite. He does it because he hates people who do horrible things to mutants. He does it because he has an eye for an eye attitude. And come to think of it, that actually makes the cover of this really interesting, where Magneto is floating this bionic eye above him, which calls back to the Sentinel that he killed at the end of the first issue. And so basically, Magneto is going up against this group that is kind of recruiting mutants and using them for some sort of a horrible, mysterious deeds. We don't really know what exactly, and they disappear. They never come back again. And so Magneto is working his way through their ranks and basically killing everybody he thinks he has to kill in order to find where these mutants are being housed. I don't think I said this last time, and I meant to. This feels like Magneto Max to me. Like the violence and the gore in this is of that level. And in fact, the art style reminds me a lot of Punisher Max. And I'm not even criticizing it for that, although I think it's kind of interesting that this is a mainstream Marvel book. But on the other hand, it is dealing so much with other things that have been going on in the X-Men books that I guess it kind of has to be. For instance, one of the things that it's dealing with is Magneto not having powers that work right. He's still dealing with his powers fluctuating and being all messed up and stuff like that. And where he's at now is certainly a direct result of recent issues and of everything that he went through with Cyclops and with Xavier's death and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I'm not saying that I would want this to be its own continuity and for it to be in the Max line, but it really definitely has that tone. I wasn't as enthralled with this as I was the first issue. issue, but it's building towards stuff. And so the first issue felt like a really great read all on its own. I mean, it's building towards stuff too, but it felt much more as like a cohesive piece, a cohesive 22-page piece. This is the beginning of lots more to come. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing where it goes. I still love Cullen Bunn's voice for this character, and I really like the really unsettling, kind of spine-chilling atmosphere. And now we go on to what's turning out to be a really unique treat for me. This is Moon Knight #2 by Warren Ellis with art by Declan Shalvey. This continues to establish the kind of tone and mood of this book, but other than that, it's a one-and-done story. These first 2 issues, except in catching us up, in just the first issue, and catching us up to speed a little bit with what's been going on with Moon Knight and his multiple personalities that he had, and whether or not he's actually crazy, all that kind of stuff, and just what the current status quo is. These really aren't setting up any kind of big villain plot or anything like that. They're kind of just episodic, one-and-done stories. I don't know if it'll continue going on like that, but so far, we did have a couple of kind of episodic one-and-done stories about Moon Knight going after some sort of killer. In this case, it's this really cool kind of intrigue story about and this really suspenseful thing about these 9 members of an organization that disbanded, that now all work on Wall Street. But they used to have some kind of ambiguous. Ellis isn't entirely clear as to what kind of organization it was. They had this company where they sent this hitman all over the world to kill whoever they thought needed to be killed in different countries to change the world. And once the company was disbanded, he was just dismissed and had nowhere to go. And he feels like they ruined his life, so now he's picking them off one by one. And he takes out all of them except for one. And Moon Knight manages to get to him before he takes out the last one. And I'll leave it to you to read the issue to find out whether or not he manages to kill that last person or not. There's a really interesting message at the end that I won't get into. I'd like to leave it for you to read yourself. This is the fastest issue I've read in a long time. This takes no time at all to read because most of the storytelling is done through the action, and I encourage you as you're reading this to really slow down your reading and give yourself time to really experience the suspense in this, because this is one of those issues that would be really easy to just flip through and finish in a couple of minutes and not really take in what's going on. It's one of those things where you have to kind of self-pace a little bit, and I really enjoyed this. There's a lot of really interesting and creative things done with the action panels. I especially like there's one panel where you see Moon Knight's cape, and it takes up like half the panel, and it kind of just goes off into a big white void behind him, and that kind of gives you this larger-than-life feel for this character. At one point, the guy that he's going after says, "Why can't I hit you?" And he says, "Because I'm not really here." I love that, and we just saw him get shot a couple panels before that. But the thing is, he has such a good command of his of his circumstance. He has such a good command of his circumstances and awareness of his surroundings that he's able to kind of manipulate people through fear and really just through kind of sheer confidence, I think, into believing whatever he wants them to believe. It's kind of Batman, but the opposite, because it's not even I'm so dark you can barely see me, and if you do get a good glimpse of me, I look like a monster. It's more who in their right mind would wear this bright white costume going up against a hitman, and the answer in most people's minds would probably be he must be crazy, and I can't begin to predict what he's going to do. And I really like that. his personality is unusual and engaging, and yeah, I'm still really fascinated by this book. It is unlike anything else I'm reading, and I still really recommend it. If you missed the first issue and you can't find it anywhere, do yourself a favor and go ahead and get this one, because it's easy to read without the previous one, and it's kind of fun to get it from the perspective of this hitman and not really get a lot from Moon Knight himself, leaving him as kind of a mysterious figure. I'd have to say that I hope we get to see Moon Knight in the white jumpsuit, not jumpsuit, but the white business suit again. Here he's got more of a traditional superhero costume, although he has this really cool over-the-top jetpack glider thing, which I think is awesome. I'm like, where did he get that? But I do kind of hope that at least occasionally this will go back to the kind of noir mystery gumshoe thing, because and give him that white suit and tie again, because I really liked that. My last Marvel book for this week is the Guardians of the Galaxy Prelude. This is the first of a 2-issue miniseries, and each of these looks like it's going to be a one-shot about different characters. Kind of interesting that they're just doing 2 of these, since at the end of this it says that the next one is Rocket and Groot. So I guess that we're only getting prequel comics unless they do some more later, since we're still several months from the movie. They're doing Rocket and Groot, and then this one is all about Nebula. And so I wonder if they're going to do any more after this, and if so, why is this just a 2-issue miniseries? I don't know. I was surprised to get a prequel comic this early for this, and this pretty much just chronicles a little bit of the background of Nebula, but more of it is about giving us both her and Thanos's kind of worldviews and their philosophies. And it's very simple. Shed weakness for the sake of power. So that's what they're all about, and that's how Thanos has raised his minions and also his daughter. So Gamora is in this, and I guess it's unfair to say that this is just about Nebula. She is our point of view character, but Gamora is here also, and by the end of this issue, Gamora is still working with Thanos. So I wonder if with the movie, if she's going to have already pulled away from Thanos, or if that's kind of her origin story for the movie. It'll be interesting to see. This does not have the kind of tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic, comedic tone that we got from the trailer of Guardians of the Galaxy. This very much feels in line with the tone of Thanos-centered things that aren't about, that aren't centered on like a Earth hero. When you have a story that's about the cosmic bad guys, it has this kind of tone. It's pretty serious. It's very no nonsense. It's very power hungry, do whatever we have to survive. And it's kind of interesting seeing Gamora and Nebula having to work their way through various trials and difficult situations, and Thanos kind of setting them up for failure and seeing if they can get through it in order to build up their in order to build them up as soldiers for his cause. And if they can't cut the mustard, then he lets them die. And we also get to see how Nebula gets her metal arm in this, and why that is, and that's kind of cool. I kind of hope that that's mentioned, or maybe not flashback, but I kind of hope that that's mentioned or something in the movie, and that she doesn't just have it. But that would be okay. Whatever. Anyway, I'm not recommending this real hard. Kind of a lukewarm recommendation for me. If you're curious about the setups for these characters, there's nothing here that really surprised me or anything, and there's also nothing here that I felt like I probably couldn't live without, though I haven't seen the movie yet, so who knows. It might be one of those things like the Star Trek prequel comic back in 09, where I really expected the explanation for the Romulan tattoos to be there, and then it wasn't. I could find myself going, well, why does she have a metal arm? Except that, this being just kind of crazy space opera, sci-fi stuff, cosmic stuff, you don't really immediately need an explanation for why somebody has a metal arm. So, like I said, I think a lot of this stuff it could probably easily be left out. It's also kind of odd looking at Gamora in this, because she definitely looks like Zoe Saldana, and not the comic book Gamora. So yeah, this is it's a prequel comic. It's kind of what you'd expect from a prequel comic. It's okay. All right, let's beam on over to DC Comics now with Green Arrow number 30. I can't believe how long this new creative team has been on this book. So this, of course, is Jeff Lemire with more just outstanding artwork from Andrea Sortino. So what we've got here is this huge, giant, crazy brawl between the Outsiders and Oliver and his people, and a lot of the different clans are involved in this, each with a different totem with what they believe are enchanted weapons. You've got the Sword Clan, the Arrow Clan, etc. And this is just incredibly involved. There's so much going on here. One of the things I keep finding myself having to do month to month is keeping up with the family tree. Who is whose son and daughter and father, and I'm about to make a chart when I read this book to put in front of me so I can go, oh yes, that's right. The girl that I can't even remember her name now. Is it Kimiko? Komodo's daughter. The Shadow is her mother, and then you've got Robert Queen and Shadow. But Oliver was born before they were together, and yeah, just keeping all that straight. But anyway, so this is kind of a big, violent family reunion. That's the best way I could describe this. And we've got Robert Queen now. I can talk about this now because it's huge in this issue, and we're a couple issues past when that was established. So Oliver Queen's father, turns out, faked his own death. He's still alive. There's a lot of that kind of soap opera in this, but it really works well in this material. It's just really, really complicated. Bordering on convoluted, but interesting. And we found out a while back that Robert Queen was kind of grooming Oliver in the shadows, Oliver not knowing about this, in order to become Green Arrow, and in order to take the Arrow clan and lead everything. And in this, Robert is going through a bit of a character arc where he's learning that Oliver became the man he is not just because he was groomed to become a superhero and all the stuff on the island and all the grueling stuff there, but more of his character comes from his mother, and watching her in the way she faced her death with cancer. And I was really impressed with all of that. I thought that was all really moving and sad, and made a lot of sense. And Robert's coming to this realization that the most important thing is his family, and that maybe the one between the two of them that really needs to grow up isn't Oliver, but it's Robert, because as Oliver says in this, all he's been doing all this time is playing secret agent on some island and letting his family grow and change and die without being there to support them. And so I have a feeling that we're going to see a huge father-son reconciliation here pretty soon in this book. Meanwhile, lots of really interesting supervillain stuff. We've got Komodo nearly ready to kill his own daughter just so that she doesn't get back in the hands of Robert and Shadow. We've got the return of Count Vertigo being set up here. So yeah, this is an incredibly dense issue, so much going on, and lots more of those great little panel things that I like so much. This time there's a panel where somebody gets punched, and we see these little tiny panels that show us every one of the individual teeth that fly out of that person's mouth. The attention to detail in this is impressive. It also makes it a great deal more violent, especially the final page. Anyway, I'm still riveted by this. This issue has got to be the most important issue here in the last few. Every one of these issues, they seem to make sure to give us some kind of important revelation, but this one especially, major, big important stuff going on here, and I'm just eating it up. And now we move on to this week's independent books with Veil #2. This is by Greg Rucka with art by Tony Fazula. And this is one of those books that is really hard to review issue to issue because I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not supposed to know what's going on yet. This is one of those books that clearly has all kinds of important iconography. There are a lot of symbols. There's a lot of mystery and intrigue and stuff, and supernatural craziness. And basically, it's one of those things where you're supposed to pay attention to everything so that eventually whenever it's finally revealed what some of these things mean, you can put those things together for yourself and go, oh, that's what this was doing the whole time. So I can't really do a lot of story analysis on this while I'm reading it. I just go, oh, that's interesting, file that away for later. So I can tell you what I'm seeing here. I can make observations. There is this supernatural creature named Veil. She showed up last issue completely nude, walking around the streets, and this mob thug guy who is apparently a lot kinder than your average mob thug guy picks her up and puts some clothes on her and is trying to and kind of saves her from or tries to save her from some horrible rapist people, and then she actually ends up killing one of them with her mind, and we find out at the end of last issue that she has telekinetic powers. So this guy is legitimately just trying to help her out, and also is certainly curious about what she is, and realizes that he's gotten wrapped up in something really unusual and terrifying. And he takes her to a diner, and they sit down to have breakfast, and he kind of just tries to figure out what they're going to do next. And awful things happen after that when some police finally show up. She has I can't tell if she actually has anything to eat or not, but all of a sudden her stomach starts to cramp up. She's starting to hurt really bad. He doesn't know why or if he's done anything to her, and it just kind of degenerates into madness. And meanwhile, there are some bad guys that are dabbling in the occult, and they obviously have, or at least this main bad guy with the green glasses and the potions and the incantations has something to do with her. Possibly, I'm guessing, something to do with her creation in the first place, or maybe she was a regular person and then he turned her into what she is, some kind of an occult experiment as opposed to some kind of science experiment. And anyway, so I don't know where any of this stuff is going yet, but I can't help but be completely sucked in while I'm reading it. This book has a surreal kind of quality to it. It has a really unnerving kind of atmosphere, and like I said, a lot of symbols. There's this thing with rats, and there's always a rat hanging around Veil, and then there are rats hanging around the occult guy, and that's gonna mean something eventually, certainly. Anyway, I'm really recommending this book. I'm enjoying trying to figure the stuff out and trying to understand what exactly is going on. And it is certainly one of those books where eventually I could find myself not enjoying it as much once I figure out what the actual answers are. But right now, I'm having kind of a lost thing with this book where I don't really know what I'm looking at, but I'm intrigued by it, and I can't help but come back for more to try to guess what's going to happen next. Next up, it's Black Science #5 by Rick Remender with art by Matteo Scalera, and in this issue, the stakes get higher, and the plot thickens, and the science gets blacker. So, last issue, our heroes, or maybe somewhat not all together, all of them heroes, our family and a couple of other people that worked on the interdimensional pillar were trapped in another dimension, in this time one that seemed kind of peaceful, and where they could spend some time working on the pillar and getting it working again. If you haven't been following the series, the basic premise is these people built this interdimensional transporter device. They used it. They got trapped in another really violent dimension, and they're trying to stay alive, and one of them last issue got killed, and every few hours the pillar activates again, but it's messed up, and they can't program it to go where they want it to. So it always turns on at a particular point, but at a particular time, but they can't go where they want to. In this issue, things get incredibly interesting. We meet a doppelganger of Grant, and he's come to explain who the actual saboteur is. Apparently somebody sabotaged the pillar, and that's why all of this happened in the first place, not that it was just malfunctioning, and we didn't know that before. And apparently because they're dimension hopping, there are, of course, it makes a lot of sense, there are other versions of some of them from other dimensions, and sometimes they're exactly the same, and sometimes they're a little bit different, and we learn some things about our characters, or possibly some things we don't know yet, especially about who the saboteur might be, from the doppelganger. And so it gets really involved and interesting, and this is an incredibly adult, violent book, but then it's got its quirky stuff. They're in this other dimension where there's these weird, crazy animal creatures, and there's kind of a fun juxtaposition between the really heavy stuff, all the lies and deception that are happening, on top of crazy animal things that we have to fight and sometimes kill and stuff. But anyway, so this is still a fun book in its way. It is, as I said, very violent, very rough, but the science fiction is solid and really interesting. And again, I'm not in love with the artwork. Sometimes I find it kind of difficult to tell what's going on. It's so all over the place. It's really frantic. The lines are kind of jagged and sort of amorphous and all over the place. But anyway, I still definitely recommending this book. I don't know how many more issues this has left to go. I don't know if this is a monthly or a mini. We're already on the 5th issue, and I'm not really seeing any signs of this being over soon. So maybe it's going for quite a while. But anyway, yeah, definitely recommending it still. And my last book for this week is Angel and Faith, Season 10, Number 1. Brand new series and a brand new creative team to Angel and Faith. This is Victor Gischler writing, with art by Will Conrad. And I really enjoyed this. Once again, I didn't finish Season 9, so a little lost at the start here, and wanted to review this first issue to let people know how it was. I'm liking the Season 10 stuff so much that even if I don't get a chance to go back to 9, I'm probably going to keep up with this stuff and review it. I need to go back and do that because my reviews are going to be a little bit haphazard until I do. Anyway, apparently last season, Angel and Faith, or Angel by himself, I'm not sure, accidentally created this place called Magic Town, and we got a lot of stuff in the first issue of Buffy Season 10 about how magic is back and how it's kind of different, and how people like Willow are having to completely reacclimate themselves to a new set of rules. And there's this weird section of the city called Magic Town, and it's being currently run by scary magic evil pixies, and they're kind of bullying people and making them do whatever they want and taking over. And so Angel's kind of fighting them off and trying to get at the heart of the matter. And he feels responsible because he was partially to blame for creating it. That seems to be Angel's MO every season, especially in the comics now. I botched something up, and now I've got to play cleanup. I don't know that that always has to be Angel's thing. I'm kind of afraid that it's becoming kind of one note with Angel. Like it's bad enough that he did all those horrible things in his vampire days that he doesn't know if he can ever redeem himself for, but like he's constantly the universe is constantly kind of throwing him curveballs, and he's always at fault for something. Okay, but anyway, simultaneously we've got Faith. Apparently Angel and Faith have kind of broken up their duo for the time being. Again, didn't finish 9, I'm not sure why. And she went to London with Kennedy to help out Buffy fight off some zompires. I really like I really like how this issue is already blending with the first issue of Buffy season 10, and how some of the dialogue even crosses over. And whenever comics can cross like that, sometimes it can be really fun. And I really liked that here. I wasn't able to talk about this last time because I didn't want to spoil things, but per the first issue of Buffy, we have a new Giles. Giles was killed off in season 8, and now he's been brought back to life, and he's a kid. We've got this young version of Giles who still has all of his memories intact, apparently, and we get to see Faith's reaction to that, which is, of course, very different from Buffy's. And I like the art in this book as much as I did Buffy. I think that it's not quite as good of a first issue as the first issue of Buffy was, but I also like that it doesn't have so many characters that it has to juggle. I think this is kind of an easier, more palatable book to deal with, because there's just so many different characters going on in Buffy. But oddly, I felt a little bit more lost here. I felt like the Buffy issue did a little bit of a better job bringing people up to speed than this one did. But I also like that this one wasn't quite as in your face about it. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I'm definitely recommending this. I think that this could conceivably be read on its own without reading Buffy. I was doing that for a while at the beginning of 9, reading Angel and Faith, but not Buffy, and I think this could be done that way as well. But anyway, so yeah, a big recommendation on my part on this one. I think it's quite fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And now it's time for Book of the Week this week. Read a lot of really fun stuff, but I think I'm gonna ultimately go with Ultimate Spider-Man number 200. As far as tribute issues go, I think that this one is ahead of the pack. Like I said, I was really moved by this issue and surprised by how much I was enjoying it and how much of a page-turner it kind of was, even regardless of the fact that it was mostly just people sitting around talking about Peter Parker. And those full 2-page spreads were really, really cool. And it was fun to get in those people's heads. You know, I've seen a lot of that kind of stuff done with books like Spawn, where they'll just kind of stop in the middle of something and do a book that's a whole bunch of kind of 1-2-page spreads, kind of reminding you of things that happened in the past really vaguely. But this does it in a character place and really kind of gets you in everybody's minds. And it's nice to keep that book grounded and centered on not just Miles Morales as Spider-Man, but the idea of Spider-Man as the whole, reminding us where it all came from in the first place and who Peter Parker was. I think it's handled really, really well. And my favorite cover this week, I was not blown away by a single cover this week. Everything was kind of just okay. So I'm going to I guess I'm going to go with Angel and Faith, with Angel fighting off pixies. That's kind of a fun cover. But like I said, I wasn't blown away really by any covers this week. And now it's time to go on to books Captain Logan didn't read with Superhero Enthusiast, and let's find out what Enthusiast has for us this time.
Hello, Geekvolutionaries, I am Alex, Superhero Enthusiast, once again here with BCLDR, books Captain Logan didn't read. And I have a bunch of books this week. This is sort of a unique week for me in that this is, I think, the first time that I've ever had more DC books to review for you than Marvel books. So we're breaking new ground here. My first book from DC was, of course, a digital first, and that's Adventures of Superman, number 49. This issue was just a little one and done. The story basically starts off with mankind has built a moon base. You can't get cooler than that. And Superman goes to, I guess, welcome everybody and give a speech and say how he stood up on the moon plenty of times. I'm sure we've seen it before. And, you know, he's always wanted humanity to be able to look up at the Earth from the moon and kind of see that view. But in the midst of everything in this whole ceremony, they get attacked by a poltergeist. So, yeah, this sounds very kind of Silver Agey, but it's not so much, and it's not so much fun. It's revealed that the ghost is actually a Kryptonian or the ghost of a Kryptonian who crashed onto the moon years and years ago. He was originally, I think, sent to conquer Earth. And he's quite peeved and doesn't like humans. It's something we've kind of seen before. And, yeah, the whole narration for the story is coming from Superman. He's telling how when he was a kid, he was afraid of ghosts, and Pa Kent, who he calls Pa Kent in his narration, which is really kind of odd that he would refer to his father that way. Pa Kent basically told him that ghosts are just things that we can't let go of, or that we give power over us in our minds, kind of a thing. And as such, I don't really like that. They just come out and spell out the metaphor for you. This isn't Aesop's Fables. I get the impression from reading this, given that there is a corpse in it, and, you know, a poltergeist, and very muted colors, that this isn't really geared for children. This is for at least, you know, 12 and up-ish, and as such, spelling out what the meaning of the story is doesn't do anybody any service. It's like you stick a metaphor in there and then take it out. And so the story just feels like it has this metaphor-shaped hole in it. It's just explaining it completely kneecaps any effectiveness of the metaphor. So basically Superman reasons with this ghost and says, I'm going to take you back to, you know, your home in, I guess, presumably the remnants of Krypton. And Superman just flies off into space with the body at the end, and kind of that's that. It's a short little one and done. As you can tell, I didn't really care for it all that much. The writing was kind of weird, given that, you know, like I said, he's referring to people like they're, you know, very apart from him, despite the fact that he knows them really well, and it's kind of clear from the rest of the narration that he's just talking to himself within his head. So it's just kind of really weirdly worded, and I didn't really like how they just came out and said what the story means. Like, that's our job to interpret it. If you have, you know, something you really want to say, then just say it. Don't write, you know, a Superman story in order to get that across. Just come out and say it in your single little statement that they have at the end. But Adventures of Superman number 49, I think this one's a pass. You can skip this one if you're following this book. Hopefully be something better coming. But that's the nature of these anthology type things, is you know, some stuff you're going to get is great and other stuff isn't. My other digital first book from DC was Batman Beyond 2.0 number 17, and this one was a doozy. I mentioned last time that the Beyond books are going to be doing this kind of a crossover thing, which is kind of interesting since the digital first ones are out weekly, and so you're going to get to read more of the story. It's a crossover that seems to be structured in such a way that it's actually going to be working and not extremely difficult to follow like many crossovers can be. The whole thing that was revealed at the end of Justice League Beyond 2.0 was that Wonder Woman, that was not our Wonder Woman. She was Justice Lord's Wonder Woman, the evil alternate universe Wonder Woman. And this issue takes place totally in that world, in the Justice Lord's world, but it's in the future. So we get an opening that is totally reminiscent of the opening scene in Batman Beyond, the TV show. They're on the kind of elevator train car thing, and there's a guy talking on the news, and Terry McGinnis is in this, but it turns out he is actually a Joker in this, you know, the Joker's gang. And I thought that was really cool because, you know, in that opening scene in the show, he fights the Joker, but now he's one of them, and obviously showing that this is a different universe where everything's flipped around, the good people are the bad people. But I always thought it was really interesting because my sort of fan theory was that in the show Batman Beyond, they hinted at Terry, well, I guess they explicitly said Terry had a criminal record. They didn't say what it was, but there were kind of hints that made me think he was actually part of the Joker's gang. And it's kind of cool to see that here in, I guess, the alternate universe. The other thing that's really, really interesting is we all know from the Justice League episode Epilogue that Terry was actually technically Bruce's son because Amanda Waller did a bunch of science wizardry and replaced Terry's father's sperm with Bruce's sperm. Yeah, it's gross. I won't get into a whole discussion on my feelings on Epilogue, but because of that, Terry here is blonde. He doesn't look like our Terry. I mean, he looks like him, but he has different hair color because the black hair comes from Bruce. And if you look at Terry McGinnis's parents in the show, they have, I think, red hair. They don't have black hair, so it's kind of like really obvious that you know, him and that Terry and Matt weren't their biological children. But anyway, the end of this, we get a visitor from our, I guess, Justice League future universe that comes into the Justice Lord's universe, and things are going to get kind of interesting from there. We see that this evil version of Terry doesn't get along with his mother. I don't know if he has a younger brother or not. We didn't see that, but he's hanging out with a version of Ten, who was Melanie from the Royal Flush Gang, and she's a Joker in this too. I guess that fits because Joker's based on a playing card, and you know, so we're the you know, Royal Flush Gang, so it all fits. But it's gonna be really interesting to see where this goes. I wasn't expecting this book to pick up in the Justice Lord's universe. I was kind of expecting to see more of the Justice Lords encroaching on our universe, and they're kind of doing it the opposite way, which was unexpected and really, really cool. So I'm really looking forward to this, the first digital first crossover event. Pretty cool stuff. Definitely recommend it. My next book from DC was Swamp Thing, number 30. The end of last Swamp Thing, number 29, had the Serene, who were this crazy green cult, basically steal Swamp Thing's avatar body, like his plant body, and trap him in just a regular body. And this issue takes a while to get going, and there's a lot of dialogue, and a lot of the dialogue is unnecessary. It's just people saying things in a more complex way than they need to. Like, there are pages that are filled with word balloons, and you probably only would have needed half as many if you were more economical with your words. But basically, this story involves showing us that the Serene cult were actually, you know, imposters, and they're stealing the plant body to try and use it in conjunction with the fruit that Swamp Thing made last time that were crazy psychedelic things, in order to give people plant controlling superpowers. And I'm not entirely sure why yet. And basically Swamp Thing and everybody else, his whole kind of team that's evolved now, they call somebody they know, and it turns out it's Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage shows up, and he helps them. It's just not, I'm having trouble talking about it. It's just not very good, and a lot of stuff happens, but it's just kind of tripping over itself. And eventually they go to India and they find the real Serene cult, and I don't like that they made the cult actually real, because them being imposters made the whole, oh, you know, why have we never heard of these people ever before thing make sense, because we would have never heard of them because they're imposters. Well, no, they're actually real, but they were just pretending to be a real green cult. So anyway, they go to India and they're trying to figure things out, and there's this guy who kind of cuts Swamp Thing in the human body, and there's like plants that grow out of the wound to kind of show that, yeah, he is the Avatar, just sort of trapped in a man-made, man-shaped body. And Swamp Thing meets somebody at the end of this, which is pretty cool to see. So I'm curious where this is going to go next time, but he's not the only one who's trapped like that. It seems like the Avatar of the Rot now is in a similar situation, and we meet her in this. And I wasn't really feeling this issue, as I'm sure you can tell. Charles Soule is also writing the She-Hulk book, which I'm also going to be covering soon this week, and that book is fantastic, and I kind of feel like he's enjoying himself so much and putting so much of himself into that book that the other things he's writing are maybe starting to suffer because of it. And hopefully that doesn't continue to be the case, because I really like Swamp Thing, and this book was quite good for quite some time once he took it over. And I don't want this to kind of go off the rails, because I enjoy reading Swamp Thing. But Number 30, yeah, I don't know that I can really recommend it. Important stuff happens, I guess, but it's not terribly good. My next book from DC was Action Comics number 30. Now, I read this book when it started in New 52 up until the end of Grant Morrison's run. I think I checked out the next issue after that, and it was not very good. I'd heard good things about Greg Pak's run, though, so I decided to kind of get caught up on it. And I wasn't really much of a fan, and I wasn't really much of a fan of this issue either. I'm going to maybe talk a little bit in broader terms about what's going on in Action right now. It seems as if what they're trying to do is shift Superman from being the more New 52-ish version of the character who's kind of a bully, basically, and transform him slowly into a more conventional Superman. And I liked Grant Morrison's Action Comics a lot. I liked the more Golden Age take. I liked that he was a little bit more rough and tumble. I like that kind of a Superman, but when it's taken to the point where he does act like a bully, then it's really hard to get behind. And the character himself has even brought that up in issues in Greg Pak's run so far, and I haven't seen him do anything about it. There was a point where he actually thought, you know, Bruce would say, you know, you gotta wait here, you gotta wait and kind of scope out the situation before just jumping in. And he's like, I'm not going to, and he just jumps in and things go terribly, and he doesn't seem to have learned that lesson. So this one, it seems like they're building towards, I guess, a new event. It says over there at the bottom, because Doomsday makes an appearance in this. He's, I guess, escaped from the Phantom Zone, and they're sort of trying to contain him. Superman has run into these people who, I guess they're like dead people, essentially. There's a woman who can raise soldiers from beyond the grave. Ghost seems to be a big Superman theme this week, and Superman is able to defeat them through not fighting them, and this woman wants to defeat Superman and wants to drive Superman away from Earth because she thinks that he's a bigger liability to them, and that all his attempts to try and save them actually make things worse. And he refused. He actually, I guess he does do more of a Superman thing, and we see a little bit of character progress for him in that he has a choice here to basically kill her or not, and he chooses not to. There's like a panel where his eyes get all red and he's gonna like heat vision her, and he decides to just stick out his hand instead, and then she uses that as proof of her point that, you know, she was this terrible threat and he should have eliminated her, but he didn't. And it seems like he can't win, but where this seems to be going is a place that I would like to read. It seems to be going there extremely slowly, and I don't know if I'm going to be continuing to pick this up week to week. I might check, or month to month, I might check in every 3-4 months to sort of see how it's going and whether or not Superman's back. But I'm not really enjoying it. I'm not really a big fan of Greg Pak, though, so if you are, maybe it might be more up your alley. I just don't really care for his writing style and the way he tends to handle certain characters. But Action Comics number 30, things are starting to get back on track for Superman. He's starting to be Superman again, but not yet. My last book from DC this week was Detective Comics number 30. Now this has Manipul and Buccellato on it, who did the New 52 Flash book, which I read for a while. I dropped it at a certain point just because, not because it was bad, but just because I wasn't too interested in the story that they were telling. Plus it's Barry Allen Flash, and I'm more of a Wally West guy, so I just wasn't too invested in it. But it was very, very good, and I love the art style a lot. And so when I heard that they're going to be doing Detective Comics, I got really, really excited. And I'm happy to say that I was not let down. This was one of my favorite books this week. It's either a toss-up between this and She-Hulk, but I'll get to that. It feels like Batman's back, in a way, and that may feel weird to say because there's like 150 different Batman books being published right now. In my opinion, the only one that's been really even kind of consistently good has been the main Batman book, written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Greg Capullo. And even that one I've had some issues with. But it feels like now that we're into 0 Year and Scott Snyder's third arc on the book, he's finally kind of clawed his way to a version of Batman that is his, and it's a version of Batman that has synthesized all of the previous versions of the character, even the wacky, kind of crazy, colorful, fun stuff, and rolled it all in together to make a version of Batman that is New 52 Batman. And I feel like these guys now, Detective Comics, have nailed that. I read Detective, a bit of the Tony Daniel run. I didn't care for it. I read a bit of the next run, and it was okay, but it didn't really do anything for me. I checked out the Dark Knight book a couple times, and people said it was getting better, and I didn't find that to be the case. But Batman just felt very dark and very bleak, and I feel like this new 52 Batman has started to solidify into a darker Batman, but one that's still very colorful. I mean, in 0 Year we have Gotham City with hot pink skies. How cool is that? But that kind of wacky color palette is a little bit reflected in this book, despite the fact that the art looks completely different. And I like that. I like that they're sort of striking this balance between the colorful stuff and the dark stuff. But this story, okay, this starts with Batman rescuing some children from child traffickers in Gotham City's Chinatown. And the action is utterly fantastic. It's some of the best Batman action I've seen in a long time. Some of the best action in comics, period, that I've seen in a long time. The action here was better than the action in Action Comics. You know, that's kind of odd given the name, but there's a certain panel in this where just how the visuals are done are so perfect. It's Batman basically crashing through a boarded up window, and the panel is tall, and the way that you read the panel would be from top to bottom. And the way it's drawn is, it's almost like it's actually in motion, despite the fact that it's not. We see you know, the smashed up window, and we see like the sound effect written there, and we pan down and we see Batman's leg coming out and kicking a guy in the face. And it's as you read it, it's like the whole panel almost moves, despite the fact that it's static. And it's just brilliant use of graphic storytelling. It just blew my mind in this. The action is so good. But Bruce Wayne is at a motocross event thing in this, which is kind of unexpected after the child trafficking thing. And he's discussing with a lady who I guess runs a company, and she's saying that Wayne Enterprises has plans to redevelop Gotham's waterfront, I guess, and not doing so would cost the company billions and billions of dollars. And she doesn't want them to develop it because that would gentrify the neighborhood. It would push out all the ethnic communities that live there, who have been trapped in a cycle of poverty and stuff, and she wants to help those people. And Bruce, of course, is a good person, and he wants to help them too, so he's going to work with her to set up some clinics there, and do all kinds of stuff to actually fix the neighborhood rather than just sort of pave over it and build condos. And Bruce asks her, like, why do you want to help Gotham City? You're not even from Gotham City. And she makes a callback to 0 Year. She says 6 years ago, a young man stood in front of a camera and said what he loved about Gotham City. And that, of course, was Bruce. And so it instantly builds this little connection there between these two characters. And I just love the continuity that everything's starting to sort of fit into a world. There's also another bit of continuity in this that is great too, and that's Damian has passed away, and they reference that. Bruce spends a lot of time repairing Damian's motorcycle, despite the fact that Damian's not coming back. You know, Bruce talks about how it gave Damian freedom and stuff that he liked, and he's, I know, sort of doing this, I guess, as a bit of a tribute rather than you know, just the costume in the little glass case. He's doing something different, and I like that. And all of the character stuff in this feels totally on point. When Batman speaks, he sounds like Batman. When he's speaking as Bruce, he sounds like Bruce. when Alfred speaks, he sounds like Alfred. It's just, they totally nail it in every respect in this. And basically the woman that Bruce was meeting with at the motocross thing, her daughter was one of the competitors in it. And she comes back at the end of this in a really, really peculiar way. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes, because this was just so good, and the ending was totally unexpected and kind of odd. We do see that there's a villain in this who is called the Squid, and I'm thinking it's the Squid, which means this is not a new character. This is a really, really obscure Batman villain that I think Killer Croc killed and possibly ate in the pre-New 52 continuity, but he's a guy that like nobody really knows about. He's a Chinatown-based villain, so I'm assuming that's what the connection is there. But I guess we're going to see more of him too, and so I'm really excited because I always love to see the more obscure Batman villains kind of taken forward and revamped and just appear in stories. Not everything has to be, you know, the Joker and the Riddler and Two-Face. It's fun to see, like, it would be awesome to see, like, Killer Moth show up in a story, or, like, the Getaway Genius, or Signal Man, or even Crazy Quilt, you know. If they could figure out a way to do it, I'd be all for it. But Detective Comics number 30, one of my favorite books this week. This is absolutely amazing, and the main Batman book is not the only great Batman book anymore. This one is going to be giving it a run for its money, and I guess if you have a limited amount of funds to be spending, you might find yourself in a bit of a tough position of which of the two Batman books you want to pick up, Detective or Batman, because this is just fantastic. I'm going to head on over to Marvel with Punisher number 4. This book continues to be fantastic and continues to keep getting better with each issue. This issue begins with Frank basically being tortured by Electro, who's working for the Dos Solis drug cartel. And of course, because he's the Punisher, he's able to escape, but there are all kinds of great lines in this because, like I've mentioned kind of ad nauseum, this is sort of Punisher like an 80s action hero, and he gets so many great quips and one-liners in this. And but basically Electro is going on a bit of a villain speechifying rant to the Punisher and saying how, you know, I'm not just the dumb muscle here, you know, they're kind of really working for me. I'm sort of manipulating the situation. I don't work for anybody, not AIM, not Dos Solis, not anybody. And that's kind of cool to see that he's not just there as the hired gun. But Frank is able to escape, and at the same time, while this is all going on, the Howling Commandos, who have been tracking Frank, kind of get the orders to go in and just finally take him out because, you know, they've been spending too much time just sort of scoping out the situation and trying to find where his base of operations is, and they haven't been successful. But there's some great stuff in this that is flashbacks to the Punisher's origin, and that's something that we've seen, you know, as much as we've seen Batman's origin, it's been done to the point where it's just kind of annoying, but it felt totally new and fresh this time. I guess maybe because I'm just used to Garth Ennis' Punisher, which their kind of interpretation of the origin was extremely bleak, and Frank almost sort of wanted his family to die there. This version is not like that at all. He's very much like the Tom Jane movie Punisher. And so that's good to see. It's a little bit brighter, and just even the colors shift in those scenes to be kind of bright yellows and stuff. And he really did lose something there, and it's kind of cool. I'm really liking this version of the character. It's just nice to get a break from the excessively dark stuff. But basically, we see Frank's friend who's from the military, and we see the Coyote again, which is really cool. And this goes in kind of an interesting place because we know what the big villain plot is. That is, Electro is going to knock out the power from all of Los Angeles and allow the gang to basically launch a war there. And that feeds into the whole idea that this book keeps bringing up about the crime there being above what cops can deal with and below what superheroes bother to deal with. And there's all kinds of references to that when Frank is being tortured, and in that you know, they're saying, Frank, you're alone. Like, nobody likes the Punisher. The Avengers are not going to show up and rescue you. You know, you're on your own. You have to get yourself out of this. And of course he does. But I'm really interested to see how this goes. The Punisher really seems to have nailed down what his mission is out there. And He's basically gearing up for war, and so this is getting really, really exciting. Storytelling keeps getting better, the art keeps getting better. It's just, if you've never read Punisher before, this is a book to pick up. It's fantastic. My last book from Marvel was She-Hulk #3. Now, I mentioned that this book is really, really good this week, and Charles Soule is writing it. And basically, where #2 ended was Kristoff, who's Dr. Doom's son, showed up at She-Hulk's law firm and said, like, I want asylum in the United States. And this issue is basically just all about that. It's, he's there at the office, and you know, she's like, why did you pick me? And turns out she was actually like his 15th choice. Nobody would take him on as a client. And this issue goes kind of exactly how you would expect. He wants asylum because in Latveria, Dr. Doom wants him to be his heir, but he wants him to do things, you know, his way. I mean, we're talking about Victor Von Doom here, right? And he doesn't want that. He wants to kind of be his own man and try to live his own way. And it turns out that he's been in the United States for exactly 1 year to the day, so he has to the end of the day to file his asylum claim. And that's a big obstacle in this, in that they have to get from She-Hulk's offices in Brooklyn to the Federal Building, I guess, which is in Manhattan. And this kind of goes as you would expect. Like, turns out Kristoff's private driver is actually a Doom bot that tries to stop them, and they run into trouble with some more Doom bots later on. And it goes how you would expect, but it's done so well. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh yeah, okay, we've gotten to this point. It feels really, really fun, and while it doesn't take you necessarily in unexpected places, the places that it takes you are loads of fun. She-Hulk has to basically break into a warehouse where Reed Richards steals all the old, or stores all of the old Fantastic cars, and she commandeers one to get them to the Federal Building. And of course, because this is somewhat of a law-focused book, there's a bit of a courthouse scene at the end here. I'm convinced that her paralegal's monkey is hypnotic, because she seems to be able to get him in anywhere and get him to help her do anything. There's a bailiff that comes in and says, like, you can't have animals in here unless they're like a seeing eye dog or something. And she's like, but you're gonna let this one in, right? And the monkey looks at the bailiff, and she's like, yes, I'm gonna let in this one. And so there's something going on there with the monkey. I'm kind of curious to see if they do anything with that, but it's really, really funny. And of course, at the end of this, I'll just say a family member of Kristoff's shows up and kind of throws a wrench into the mix. And I'm not sure if this is going to pick up, if She-Hulk is going to try and keep going with this case after this issue, but if you haven't read any She-Hulk before, this is a great book to jump on. This issue might even be good enough to, if you just kind of get the general backstory. Of course, comics always have a page at the beginning where they sort of say in vague terms what happened last time, and so it's relatively easy to jump onto. The art in this has been fantastic in the first 2 issues. It's even more fantastic here. The paneling really enhances it. Everything is totally on point. Most of this book, it feels, is like giant 2-page spreads, and they all look gorgeous. The coloring is so poppy, you know, it's bright pinks and greens and blues and stuff, and it's just gorgeous to look at. It's eye candy. And this book is just so much fun. So much fun. It's one of the most fun things that I'm reading. Maybe the most fun thing that I'm reading. It's just fantastic. So She-Hulk #3, highly, highly recommended. Like I said, one of my top 2 books this week. I'm going to wrap up this week with a webcomic that is somewhat superhero related. It's called JL8, and it's by Yale Stewart, who I guess is doing the illustration on Marvel's Nova book right now. The book is essentially, what if the Justice League was 8 years old and had to go to school? And it may sound like sort of a silly concept, but it's handled so well. The story is hilarious. It's basically done, like, it's a webcomic, so it's done as a comic strip. So it's kind of like, you know, you would read Peanuts in the newspaper or something. And it's sort of like that. It's sort of like Justice League meets Peanuts, or like meets, you know, kind of like the Arthur TV show, you know, Arthur the Aardvark. It's kind of like that, and as such, it's a lot of fun. they poke a lot of fun at various superhero tropes and stuff. There's they're all kids, but they're all like very much those characters, and there's like, they have bullies who are slightly older on the playground who like tease them and stuff, and that's like a little Legion of Doom. Then you got like Lex Luthor and like a Solomon Grundy and stuff like that there, which is kind of funny. Darkseid is their gym teacher and like the school coach, and plays the most aggressive game of dodgeball you can really imagine. But yeah, all the character stuff is on point. Batman is hilarious in this. Because he's a little kid and he's trying so hard to be dark and serious, it comes off as even more hilarious. And they've been kind of working in some interesting stuff. J'onn J'onzz, Martian Manhunter, is like an exchange student from Mars in this. Their teacher is actually based on Julius Schwartz, of course, from you know, DC Comics. And I don't really know what else to say other than that. This is just, it's brilliant, it's so well done, it's hilarious, it's loads of fun. There is a reasonable amount of it to get caught up on, but I was able to do it basically in an afternoon. I suppose you could just sort of pick up reading and find your way, but you'd be missing out on a lot of stuff, because I've sort of set up certain relationships and crushes between members of the JL8 and stuff, and Batman's like kind of dating Power Girl, and she only really wants to be with him because he's rich and has horses, and she really likes horses, which is kind of funny. And Barry Allen is hilarious in this, and him and Hal have a great kind of relationship like they do in the comics. It's just, everything is on point here. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite webcomics. I think it updates 2 or 3 times a week, so there's a fair amount of it that comes out, and definitely worth your time if you're interested in that kind of a thing. It's just loads of fun. But that does it for me for this week. If you have anything you want to suggest me to review, I might be willing to check it out. Definitely check out Detective Comics number 30 and She-Hulk number 3 this week. Absolutely just fantastic books. But that does it for me. I'm Alex, superhero enthusiast, and back to you, Captain Logan.
Everybody, thanks as always for watching. Sure appreciate it. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas. That's my absolute favorite store. They help us out with the show. We sure appreciate it. So go check them out. And if you ever want to send anything for us to review on the Comic Book Vault, you can always send that to our P.O. Box. That's Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. By the time this goes up, I'm probably still won't quite have gotten the Captain America First Avenger review up. I am diligently working on that, but wanted to make sure and also get comic reviews out before the weekend was over. So be patient. That's coming out here pretty soon. And also, I will have a review of the new one of Captain America Winter Soldier, a quick how we're feeling it first impression review up for you later this evening. Thanks again for watching. Sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.